with very few leaders or managers do well, you have to define expectations. And you'd be surprised how few leaders and managers do that well. And that is an absolute first step, because if you have not defined expectations, the chances of your team to do well and to win are diminished by a large scale. Like you're basically setting them up for failure in 50% of the cases almost. So that's what I do first. I write down a document that we call what success looks like in your job. That's a 1 to 3 pages document, depending on the level of seniority and maturity and rank in the hierarchy of the job.
Welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast.
All right, welcome into the show. I'm Vince Quinn, and today we're talking about empowering teams and a major shift in social media. And joining us for this conversation is Emeric Ernoult, the co-founder and CEO of Agorapulse. Emeric, welcome to Future Fuzz.
Thank you, Vince. Very glad to be here.
Happy to have you. So first off, just give people a little bit of background about what Agorapulse is.
Yeah, so Agorapulse is a social media management software. So it's a software that's helping businesses and agencies manage their presence on social media. So they have social profiles, social accounts, and that means that they need to post content there and get the comments and the messages and the reviews and the mentions and everything that's calling their attention. We get that, and they can reply to all of that from one place, and then we help them measure what works, what doesn't work, what they should keep doing, what they should stop doing. So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Yeah, which is such a vital thing to do. I mean, for what it was like when you'd have to go to all these different platforms manually and schedule all this stuff and do all the guesswork. I mean, it's just a nightmare scenario. Really.
It is.
So,
yeah.
Usually
good businesses are businesses that solve nightmares.
Yes. And you've done that. And obviously you've seen a lot of growth. So like, as we take this from sort of the leadership side, I mean, how much has Agorapulse grown, and what has it been like for you to be a part of that growth? How have things changed for you as it's grown?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the first 4 years have been quite challenging. And we didn't raise money, so we need to start there. We are a bootstrap company, as you would call that, which means that we grew with our own revenue, and that makes your growth in the early days very challenging, because you're like 3, 4 people, 5 people, and you're trying to do it all, like accounting, content strategy, and sales, and marketing, and product building, all with 5 people. So you can imagine the challenge that feels like. And until 2015, it was growing, but it was painfully slow, and it was very, very hard. We reached product market fit in 2014-15, and we reached profitability at the end of 2015. So 2016 was really the first year where we grew 150%. It was really amazing, and we started hiring and growing the team. I think we ended 2016 with 50 people, where we started the year at like 25. So it was really a high growth year at the time for us. We went up to 200 people at some point, but we've scaled down to 165 right now. You always make that. It's a pity, but entrepreneurs always we go too far, we go too big. We need to scale back a little bit. So, it's a constant movement of, over investing and then correcting and course correction. So now we're 165, I believe. And, it's obviously a lot of transition, but the main transition from the early days where you are 10 people in the same room or almost in the same room to a day as today where you are 165 around the globe, speaking different languages, living in different countries, is that your job transforms tremendously from a doer to a doer through people. Like, I'm not doing much myself anymore unless it's for fun.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely building through people. So like my coach used to say, in the early days, you build a business. When you become a successful business, you build a team that builds the business, but you're not building the business anymore.
Yeah. And how was that for you? I mean, just on a personal level, because I think it's hard for some people to let go. Like, what was that process like for you to make that change?
Yeah, it was a lengthy process. It didn't happen overnight. It took several years. I think early on it's really, really hard to fight the urge of feeling good because you've done something. Especially when what you do is mostly having long-term impact. If what you do is having short-term impact like sales, then um, it's easier to delegate because you can feel the indirect impact through the team you're building. But if what you do is very hard to measure short term, then you feel good by doing and by being busy and active on creating stuff. Like, let's say you're doing content for your business. So what are you doing? You do a podcast like this one,
Yeah.
or you write a blog post, or you create a webinar, or whatever that is. And that podcast episode that you're going to create with us today is not going to create immediate result for whatever you're trying to achieve, right? It's going to compound over time, and basically I'm pretty sure the pleasure you have at the end of the day is like, oh, I did 2 great podcast episodes today. I'm happy. I feel good because I produced something.
Mhm.
And letting go of that feeling is really hard. So in the early days, you fight back, and you try to, let me do some podcasts still. Let me do one interview a week, or two a week or something. So it took several years, and you just grow. And at the end of the day, when you build a business for the sake of building something, and you want that something to be great. And, little by little, you realize that if I want this something to be great, I have to change. I have to get better. I have to transform myself. And when you start realizing that, you have to change your expectation for the job you have. You have to change the way you enjoy work, and make, grow into this. So it's a long process. I'd say it took 4 to 5 years for me.
And to go through all of it, I mean, I tend to internalize a lot of things through sports because, like, sports obsessive, being in Philadelphia, worked in sports radio for 10 years. And so it's almost like that transition of like player to coach, where you're going from doing all of the active things to now, okay, I'm going to help some of the players do these things. And then as you get even bigger, it's almost the idea of, hey, now I'm in the front office and I'm making all of the trades and doing the drafting and like running the team. But
Yeah.
I'm hiring coaches and I'm hiring players and like putting that whole thing together. And yeah, it is a different mindset. It's different skill sets. Like, it's so much change.
It's a great comparison. The sport one, actually. Thank you too for bringing that up. And I would say, if you love the team you're working for in sport or in business, then you're going to do what's required, and you're going to become what's required. And if that means you need to become a coach, well, let's become a coach. And if that means you need to become the CEO of the whole team, and hire the coach and the coaches, and do the drafts and everything, let's make that happen. So for me, the key driver is, I love the business, I love the team, so I want to become whatever is necessary for this team to win.
Yeah. And so when that comes down to the idea of, like you said, winning through people, I mean, what does that look like? Because it sounds great, right? If I'm listening and I'm like, I got a team, I would love to win with everybody. Like, let's do.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that are essential for you, or what did you really value as you've done that?
First of all, I had to learn what you make that happen, because, as you say rightfully, it sounds great, but what does that look like? And how do you make beyond what does that look like is, how do you make that happen? How do you make your team successful? So I have actually built a pretty straightforward recipe for that, so I can share that with you
I
and
would
with
love
the
it. I
audience.
got notes. I'm ready to cook. Yeah, share that
Yeah.
recipe.
Step number one, with very few leaders or managers do well, you have to define expectations. And you'd be surprised how few leaders and managers do that well. And that is an absolute first step, because if you have not defined expectations, the chances of your team to do well and to win are diminished by a large scale. Like, you're basically setting them up for failure in 50% of the cases almost. So that's what I do first. I write down a document that we call What Success Looks Like in Your Job. That's a 1 to 3 pages document, depending on the level of seniority and maturity and rank in the hierarchy of the job. the document's probably going to be a bit longer if it's a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, than if it's an account executive or a support agent. Like obviously the broader the responsibilities, the more detailed and the longer the document will be. But that document is very, very specific and very, very detailed. And that's where I start. Then the second thing I do is I run weekly one-on-ones with each of my team members. And during these one-on-ones, we talk about one item of the what success looks like in depth. So it's either an item I am very happy about, and that's a good opportunity to say, thank you, you're doing a great job. Congrats, keep up the great work. I love it when you do that. And that's reinforcing the right behaviors, right? Because of course, you want to course correct the wrong behaviors, but you also want to reinforce the right ones because that's how you get the best of people. You show them when it looks great and you tell them. So that's, I'd say, what happens 50% of the time in those weekly one-on-ones. Mm-hmm. Then the remaining 50%, it's kind of a split between the things I noticed that's not working, and that should be course corrected. So the conversation is going to be around, hey, let's talk about how you manage, let's say you're a CTO and you're supposed to ensure high compliance, like SOC 2, ISO, like all these, compliance issues. For those who know what I'm talking about, they know the pain. And let's say that you have started to work on an ISO 27001. That's a cyber security ISO. That means that your software is safe. And it's been going on, and it was supposed to be done by the end of September, and it's still pending, and you had no news. So then it's going to be, hey, man, you said that certification would be done by the end of September. It's okay to be late, but I have not heard from you since September 1st. And of course, I should have asked, but you're my CTO. I also expect you to come to me when things are going to be late and when things are not going to be done as expected or in the time frame that we expected. So I really need to understand today, what's going on, why is it late, and what are you struggling with? And I want to remind you that when things like that happen, I need to know on October 2nd, like not on November 18th. Don't worry, my CTO has done all the compliance stuff. It's amazing. I just take that as an example, but that's the kind of, course correction that you would do. And then there's the stuff that you don't know. So you don't know if you need to course correct, but you haven't heard about this item for a long time. And you actually have no visibility whether or not your team member is doing it. So if I take an example, I had one team member at one point that had one what success looks like item that said, build a high-performing team, and there were a bunch of bullet points of what that meant. And I realized that I didn't know how they made sure that their team was high-performing. So I went to them during one of those one-on-ones, and I say, hey, Johnny, let's take a fake name. Yeah. How do you know if your team is high-performing? Because that's one of your core responsibility. That's one of the things that you're supposed to deliver as a VP of whatever. What's your process? What's your framework? How do you do that? And then as we were going through that conversation, I realized that they didn't know. They didn't have a process. They didn't have a framework. So, okay, cool. That's good to know. Since this is something that will define success for you in your job, let's work on that. If you could come back to me next week and propose something, and then we'll iterate from there and we'll take it to the right level. So those are the three things I do: reinforcement of the right stuff, course correction of the wrong stuff, and question on the stuff I just don't know about. And all based on a clear, detailed definition of expectations, which I call what success looks like. But you could call that your job expectation, what you're supposed to deliver in your job, whatever the name, doesn't matter. But it's clear expectation in writing between you and your direct report. Because once you've done that and you have this weekly cycle of discussion and conversation about what it looks like, then you know if they are successful, they know if they are successful, and then you can have that feeling of it's working, they're progressing, they're becoming a better version of themselves. And that's, to answer your initial question, that's a long answer to a short question. That's how you create the feeling.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah, and that's what I want. I want long answers to short questions. That's me doing my job. You know what I mean? So that's great. But I do think it hits on a lot of different things, because there's been times where I've been in different roles and I have no idea really what I'm supposed to do. And so I have all these ideas of what I think is valuable in the role and where I want to place my attention and why I want to do that. But if I start digging into all these projects and going crazy on it, and then it's like, oh, here's all these different things. They're like, oh, we wanted a third of that, and we wish you were doing this instead. Well, then, it's a
Too
waste of
bad.
everybody's time, and it's a complete nightmare scenario. So I love that it is such an active sense of communication. You are emphasizing good things as well, because people need that. We tend to beat ourselves up. We tend to think of the negative things. I could tell you 20 negative things I've done in the past year. I could hardly name 3 good things I've done. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of how we operate. So it's like, it's good to reinforce those things, have that outside perspective on how it works and where it should be moving towards, and to create that cohesion. So I guess when you do that, then, I mean, and to be able to do that for a long period of time, as you've been with Agorapulse and build these teams up, like, what are some of the results then, as you've been able to actively maintain these relationships, have these conversations? How's it impacted the company?
There are 2 main results that are absolutely amazing. Result number 1, you see people in your team that you enjoy working with grow and become the V2 version of themselves, and the V3 and the V4. Like, you see them growing under your eyes, and it's really amazing. And I think if you love managing people and leading people, witnessing that is really the essence of the pleasure in your job. When you see people blowing, like blowing up, and when you notice the difference between January 1st and December 31st of what a person is capable of and doing, and especially when they're coachable, which is obviously expected and much better.
Yes.
You see them embracing the feedback. Oh yeah, you're right. I want to work on this. I want to get better at that. Yes. Okay. Let's do that together. So that's the first thing, is seeing the growth in the people. That's the first impact, the first effect, which is, I'd say, the positive one. Then the second thing you see is when things are not going well. And then let's not hide ourselves. Things sometimes don't go well. Sometimes you hire the wrong person, or your company has grown and has transformed into something else that the person has not transformed into to be able to support. So sometimes things are not going well. And by doing this exercise with them, what happens is that you don't have to have the hard conversations. They actually come to you and say, okay, because they have the level of clarity that you've given them is giving them the authorization to come to you and say, I'm not going to make it. That's not for me. I can't make that. Because the way my process works is that what success looks like is something we agree on. Like, we almost sign it with our blood. Like, it's yes, this is my job. I agree. This is what I'm supposed to do. Someone in my position should achieve all these things. Okay, cool. Now we really work together and not one against each other. And once you've done that and you've obtained this agreement, between the report and the leader, then if things don't work out, it's usually them who come to me and say, it's not going to work. You have to replace me. I'm not going to be the right person for this role. And because you've created this atmosphere of trust and mutual respect, usually the way it works is, say, okay, cool. Well, I want you to be in the right seat. What do you think would be your right next seat in the company? Because sometimes they want to stay in the company and they find another seat and they step back or they step aside or whatever. And sometimes you just don't want to. So like, no, you know what? I don't want to stay. It feels like failure to me. I'd rather leave and go start somewhere else because I feel bad about this. And I don't want to look at my colleagues and every morning and feel like I'm a failure. So that's your perception. I can tell you it's wrong, but I don't want to fight it. So if you feel better going to work somewhere else, so you don't have to carry that weight with you here, okay, fine, perfect. But just keep in mind that we love you, we love working with you, and if we can find the right seat for you, and we'll make everything possible to make it work. So you'll have those 2 situations. You either see them grow, or they will come to you and say, I just can't make it, and You're gonna laugh at this, but the reason I started to work on this concept is because in the early days of my career, I hated those hard conversations with people where we had to let them go. We had to part ways. I hated them, and I was looking for a way to not have them, or get away from them. And I basically thought, how do I make them trigger the conversation and come to me with a conclusion, which is, I can't do it. It's too hard for me. And that's how I came up with this. Oh, in order to do that, I need to have given them absolute clarity on what's expected and have their agreement on what's expected. If I had those two things, then we're going to work together collaboratively on assessing whether or not they can do that. And there will be no fight on whether or not they can do that, because we both agree on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And if I do that regularly and I do the right level of reinforcement, there will be no opposition when the conclusion will be, I can't do it. I can't make it. It's too hard. I'm not done for that. I've had examples of people who I promoted to VP levels, like, top leadership levels, that they aspired to be, that they wanted to become. And once they were in the seats, they were burned out by the level of responsibility, number of decisions they had to make every day, people they had to let go as well. And they have not always created this clarity with them. So it was a fight. It was hard. And some of them came back to me and said, actually, I don't want the VP role. It's too hard. I said, okay, no problem. At least we both defined what it meant to be successful in that role. And we both found a way to go in other direction. So I think those are the two main benefits, that there's a lot less fight against a failure, with lots of quotes, because it's never a failure. You're never a failure, but you fail at one job in one company at one time, but you may succeed in that job 5 years from now, once you've learned and acquired the right skills and the right poise. You know what I mean? So it's never a complete fail forever. It's always a fail for now at this. And if you really want to, that person who wanted to be a VP, maybe she'll be a VP 5 years later or 6 years later, once she has acquired what makes her stronger or in a better position to face the difficulty of the job. So yeah, those are the two things that you get from that.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes so much sense, because you have an idea of what something is going to be before you get into the job. And then once you start doing the work and living it and experiencing yourself in it, then it does change. I mean, on some level, it's like relationships in a very basic sense of like, hey, I think this is what this relationship is going to be, or this is what I think I'm looking for in a relationship. And then you can get in that and be like, oh, this does not work, or it doesn't work anymore. Or, I mean, like I need to find a different thing because I've changed. There's just so much that goes into that personal element of like who you are, what are the things you need, what really engages you, how you fit within a culture. I mean, it's everything, right?
I'm laughing because you're taking the relationship example, and I had a conversation with my VP of customer success today, who's going to get married. I said, "Did you write what success looks like for that marriage?" I think you can apply the same principles to relationships and marriage. You say, okay, what does a successful marriage look to us? And are we ready to write it down and share it with each other and keep working on it, just to make sure that as we evolve and grow up and become a different person, we are staying in sync with our partner and making sure that we keep the conversation going on.
Yeah, it's what I did for my vows. Like, we literally sat down and we're like, all right, what matters to us to like mean that we're doing the right stuff for this relationship, and how do we want to phrase that? Okay. And then we did that for our wedding vows, and that was it. Like, it was that same exact philosophy. So it's crazy how all this comes together. All right. Well, Emeric, I feel like I could talk to you for days. And we didn't even have time to get to all the social media stuff. So we'll have to keep that conversation open. But for now, with everybody who wants to keep up with you and learn more about Agorapulse, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, well, Agorapulse, go to agorapulse.com. If you are challenged by managing your social media presence, we are probably one of the best solutions out there. So there's a free trial, so you can see for yourself. You don't have to trust my words. One of the things that we are starting to work on is helping people create content at scale, like amazing content at scale, which is the new challenge of 2025, 2026. So that's something to follow us for, because that's going to be amazing stuff is going to come up in the next 2 or 3 months based on that. And obviously, if you want to connect with me, the best place is to go on LinkedIn. I try to invest as much time as I can on LinkedIn, and you can send me an invite there if you add a little note to the invite by telling me where you heard about me and why you want to connect. That's going to help me identify who is a spam and who is a real
Yes.
connection.
All right. Send the note, folks. Send the note.
Yeah,
So,
send
all
a
right.
note.
There you have it. All right. Well, Emeric, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation.
You're welcome, Vince. Thank you for yours.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.